Rupiah Banda, a towering figure of democracy and immense contrast among his political contemporaries, has crumbled in the annals of history. He died on Friday, March 11, 2022, after succumbing to colon cancer, which he had battled with for some months. His political and public service story is one of the most remarkable in the last 6 decades. He had become the most potent symbol of peaceful handover of power and reconciliation in Zambia, the region, the continent, and the world at large.
It's yet another sad development in the history of our nation, not just because former President Banda was our vice president and later on he became our president, but also one of those that participated in the struggle for the liberation of this country, and one of those that fully participated in bringing Zambia to what we see it today.
I find it very devastating, especially that I actually spoke with him about 20 days ago while he was in Dubai, where he had gone for treatment. So I was hoping that he was going to recover. You know, he assured me that he was getting well, and I was preparing actually to go and see him.
Arabi, as he was affectionately called, was born on February 19, 1937 in Gwanda, southern Rhodesia then, now Zimbabwe. Mr. Banda started politics at a very tender age while he was doing his secondary education at Munali Secondary School, where he joined the Zambia African National Congress ZANC, led by the late Harry Mwanga Nkumbula.
There was a lot of agitation amongst the black people, especially here in Zambia, and the Copper Belt, the unions, and the political leaders then, Dr. Kaunda Nkumbula, Harry Mwanga Nkumbula. They were talking a lot about this. I was at secondary school at the time, and I got affected by the bug. I wanted also to agitate for independence. I was very young at the time, but I was very radical. I thought that people like Dr. Kaunda were too liberal, too mild, too soft with the British. Because then I started to read a lot of books about the freedom struggle from West Africa, from India, and some of us preferred to take up arms and fight against the British. But of course, Dr. Kaunda would always tell us that, no, that would be the last resort.
After secondary school, he got a scholarship to study at the University of Addis Ababa in Ethiopia, before earning another scholarship under the International Union of Students to study economic history at Sweden's Lund University. While in Sweden, Mr. Banda served as UNIP's representative to Northern Europe and helped spread awareness about UNIP's work and secured scholarships for several Zambians. He completed his studies in 1964.
While in Sweden, that time he had already joined the United National Independence Party at a very tender age. He was in Sweden at the age of, was it 23? While there, he became the youth representative of UNIP in Northern Europe. So as he was in Europe, he also started organizing some scholarships for some other Zambians to travel and go and study in Europe. And that is why he was so recognized that by the time Zambia was getting independence in 1964, October 1964, the following, in a few months, President Kenneth Kaunda appointed him as the first Zambian ambassador to the United Arab Republic, which later became Egypt.
After serving in the diplomatic service and several other portfolios, the decorated politician went into retirement. However, his retirement was short-lived as President Levi Mwanawasa recalled him and appointed him vice president in October 2006. After presiding over the affairs of the nation in an acting capacity under 90 days, Mr. Banda formally rose to the highest office in the land following a presidential election held on 30 October 2008.
Rupiah Banda was a complete person in terms of all-round service to his motherland, Zambia. He served in literally in every situation, up to the highest level of service in the land in terms of his having been president from 2008 upon the demise of late President Mwanawasa.
Mr. Banda ruled from 2008 to 2011 when he lost power to his fierce rival, Michael Sata.
In my years of retirement, I hope to watch Zambia grow. I genuinely want Zambia to flourish. We should all want Zambia to flourish. So I congratulate Mr. Michael Sata on his historic victory. I have no ill feeling in my heart. There is no malice in my words. I wish him well in his years as president.
Kennedy Limwanya worked at State House as Chief Press Analyst at the time. Mr. Limwanya says he edited the late president's concession speech.
It was not enshrined in the Constitution that there should be a handover, a transfer of power. It was not in the Constitution, but he just made a conscious decision. Despite having lost power, he made a conscious decision to go to the Supreme Court grounds and hand over to President Michael Sata. I remember earlier that day, in the morning of that day, he had called a press conference to concede defeat. And I remember going through his speech of concession early in the morning when it was sent to me, and I went through it, did some editing, and later he conceded defeat.
And Winter Kabimba, a veteran politician who also worked under Mr. Banda when he served as Lusaka City Governor, says he was present during the transition meeting between MMD and PF.
I'd known him as a person that was not corrupted by power. Even the day when he was handing over power, when he was handing over office to Mr. Sata on a Saturday, I was present. And I'd worked with both men. And they were walking around, joking to one another. None of them was tensed up. And if you remember, he actually attended Michael Sata's inauguration at the Supreme Court building. And none of the MMD ministers accompanied him, apart from his son, Andrew.
People of Zambia voted for him in good faith that he would be a good president and that he would look after the affairs of this country and the treasury of this country. And therefore, Mr. Speaker, we bring this motion without any iota of bad faith against any individual, and in particular, former President Rupiah Banda. We bring this motion in the interest of the country.
When I was Minister of Justice, I am the one that moved the motion on the floor of Parliament to remove the immunity of RB on various allegations of corruption. You'll be surprised that the old man didn't take that to heart. I continued speaking to him. He continued calling me. Even after that.
The adored statesman has also been extolled as a unifier, as demonstrated by one of his last actions when he convened a meeting between President Hakainde Hichilema and former President Edgar Lungu.
When we thought there was going to be a rift between outgoing President Edgar Lungu and incoming President HH, Rupiah Banda stepped in, called them like his own children, talked to them, and they came out laughing. And we have that video.
Mr. Banda's democratic works also transcended the borders of Zambia, as reminisced by those who worked closely with him.
When he went to speak, he was a keynote speaker at an event at the Kenyatta University of Law. There were many international participants there. So he explained to them that there's no need to accept defeat if the people have decided And he gave his own example that in 2011, when it looked apparent that I was losing elections, my colleagues asked me if we could go for a recount because they suspected that the vote had been stolen. So he says, but then I told them, how can I dispute elections which I, as president, have organized? Why should I dispute? Because I'm in charge of the elections.
During the problems that arose in Malawi between Peter Mutharika and the current president, Arabi said to me, I've spoken to Peter Mutharika and I've said to him, give up that thing. Don't contest the election results so that there is peace in Malawi. He said to me he didn't heed my advice, but what could I do?
Despite his admired political acumen, Mr. Banda's presidency was one of the most opposed, especially among some named media outlets. The scathing attacks in the press did not, however, cause any resentment between President Banda and those who vilified him.
The Post newspaper used to write very bad things about Arabi. But at no point, when we were at State House, at no point did we decide to bar the Post from coming to State House. In fact, some of my closest friends for me were at the Post newspaper. At the time, the Post newspaper was writing bad things about Arabi.
He said to me, I want you to say this to Fred Membe when you meet him. Tell him that I have buried the past. I have forgiven him for everything that he wrote about me in the Post newspaper. And I would like us to reconcile before I die.
Away from politics, Mr. Banda is remembered for his love for the smallest form of governance, the family. Politician and preacher Nevers Mumba worked closely with Mr. Banda. Memories of his time with the late president are hanged on the walls of his house.
President Banda loved his family, but not only his family. Even in politics, the first greeting he gives to you is, how is your family? When he met me, he would say, how is Mrs. Mumba and the children? Then he starts to talk about anything else. So I would like us in our time of mourning not to look at him just as an icon or an institution, but as a family man, a person that was human as all of us.
And Mr. Limwanya has also recalled the modest approach that Mr. Banda had with people, regardless of their status in society.
He taught us to be humble. You know, he's one person, even when we were at State House, when greeting you, would greet you with while bowing down. And now we thought, if the president, the number one citizen in the country, he can bow, who are we? Should we be boasting because we're at State House when the president can bow? So he taught us humility. He was a very humble person.
Young people in the country have been challenged to learn from Mr. Banda's tolerance and humbleness.
Apart from having served at all these highest places, Rupiah Banda was very humble. If you remember before President Manawasa called him from retirement, he was in Chipata, and those that met him always referred to him as having been playing in solo, having been leading a public life, mixing with ordinary people, the lowest, the middle, the highest. He mixed with everybody, and that was perhaps why President Manawasa recalled him and he made him vice president, because he knew that he was a person who belonged to the people.
In the words of Rupiah Banda, for democracy to flourish, there must be a continuing stream of individuals of integrity and ideas with promise. There must be room for a new generation of leaders to rise and solve the generations of problems.